what I wanted to start with is to share a few observations on the moment in history that we are in. Something is no longer working, and it doesn't take a long time to look around and see the massive institutional failure that we can witness every day. So an old way of organizing, an old way of creating society, creating institutions is no longer working. Yet, we feel there should be another way, and yet we don't know exactly what that looks like. We have bits and pieces, but we haven't really put together kind of the larger picture. So that's how I feel. I'm 49, and I think my generation, I have seen already 4 times tectonic plates of history shifting. The first time was 1989 in Berlin, when the Berlin Wall collapsed. And with it, the Cold War system that had defined the better part of the 20th century. A few years later, with the collapse of the apartheid system in South Africa, we saw the next tectonic shift happening. And the third one that I experienced and that I witnessed over the past 20 years is the rise of East Asia and China as the new center of the global economy. And then the third one, of course, is that we all witnessed is technology. I mean, just think about, like 10 years ago, who knew the name Facebook? 500 million users, makes it the third largest country on this planet, and makes people do things that no other country can. So, yet 10 years ago, wasn't even around. So we all have seen massive tectonic plates shifting just in our lifetime. And yet, I believe that the most important shift, the most important transformation of our time is none of these 4. The most important one deals with something else, and it deals with the deep transformation of business and society. It deals with the deep transformation how business, society, and civil society relate to each other. Right? Today, the banks are more powerful than, the big 5 are more powerful than before the 2008 crisis, in spite of the regulation that we saw. So we see single special interests. So 3.0 capitalism is basically special interest groups negotiating with each other, right? On a kind of abstract level, maximizing their own interests. And that's no longer working. It's no longer working given the externalities that we face locally and globally. What is it that we need? We need to evolve the economic coordination system to a new level of consciousness that I call ecosystem awareness. So ecosystem awareness would be that you do not, like in 3.0, organize around special interest groups that compete against each other at the expense of the whole, but that you would organize around the commons, the common interest that put different people together in collaborative relationship, and that you increase basically the collaborative intelligence, and that we learn how to innovate not only on a small scale, but 4.0 really is a way of organizing that allows us to innovate at the scale of the whole system. It has to do with pulling together all the key stakeholders, including business, government, civil society, moving them through a process of empathizing with each other, seeing the system through the viewpoint of the most marginalized players in the system, and then kind of developing a deeper systems understanding, envisioning new ways of operating and exploring that future through concrete prototypes, kind of through learning and doing on a small scale, and then developing that. That type of leadership capacity is nowhere nurtured today. And I see the essence of the leadership challenge today is to move people from ecosystem to ecosystem awareness. That's really what we get our money for. So when you get a paycheck, when you're as a facilitator, as a consultant, as a leader, that's what you really do. When an NGO is nailing a global brand because of child labor in Asia and so on, what is it that you do? You force them to move from ego to echo. It's not, what counts is not what we do as leaders and change makers. What counts is not even the process that we apply. Yeah, it matters a little bit, but what matters most is the third thing. What is the third thing? It's the source level from that we operate. It's the quality of awareness out of which our actions come into reality. It's the quality of, for example, listening that I bring into a conversation, that I bring into a situation. Leaders need to develop mastery in a new social technology. And the essence of that social technology is to open the mind, to open the heart, and to open the will, to tune these three instruments. What is to open the mind? It's the capacity to suspend habitual judgment. What is open the heart? It's the capacity to redirect my perspective from my viewpoint to someone else's, the marginalized experiences in the system. And what is kind of the open will? It's the capacity to let go and to let come. All right? So that's number two. Number three, in this social technology, the most important tool is yourself. It's your capital as self, which is your capacity to connect with your highest future possibility. To do that, the moment you commit yourself to go on that journey, puts you on a journey and puts you in front of three enemies that hit you from within. And the first enemy is called VOJ, the voice of judgment. And the voice of judgment basically shuts down the open mind. Right? And that's why any creativity technique, any brainstorming technique starts with what? Suspending the voice of judgment. Stop criticizing other people's ideas. Again, that's what we as leaders are paid for. So help people do that. Because otherwise we cannot access the power of the open mind. Secondly, the second enemy, the voice of cynicism. So if you start empathizing with another person, what's the problem there? The problem is you put yourself out there into vulnerability. Okay? So what's the easy way out? Cynicism. Cynicism is all emotions of distancing yourself from the situation. And I'm not saying you should not be cynical. All I'm saying is if you want to access your real creativity, then cynicism is just as dysfunctional as the voice of judgment is because it stops your opening process. And number three, the voice of fear. And the voice of fear, fear of losing stuff, fear of being ridiculed, fear of not making it, fear of, at the end of the day, it's fear of dying. And that's the first person experience of leadership many of us have as entrepreneurs. And that's the first person experience of leadership that we also have at this point in history globally, as a global community. How do we do that? Basically, I believe, by following our heart. By developing a leadership that really kind of is connecting that to the impulses, kind of that we can connect with by doing what we love and loving what we do. And that creates support infrastructures that allow us to cultivate these deeper levels of listening and of connecting with each other. So if we have like a support, like a personal practice or another person we can connect with, if that level 4 listening is applied to us, that's a huge help. And how to do that on a community level and on a city level and on a regional level, I think is one of the big questions and challenges and opportunities we have today. Thank you very much.